down the field. Happy tossing dimes, cup $1 million deal. Fantasy football, better know it's real. Tune into the podcast, tell us how you feel. We be going live, best believe we talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football from Up North podcast. It's your host Clayton here, and joining me is you're a regular now, Riley.
Yes, so yeah.
I think it's about time we replace Habby. This thing, kind of fired him. Actually, I don't even think I even told him I was doing this, so I guess we could kind of cut him a little bit of a break. He's just lazy, anyways. But you know what? We're here to talk
hockey out here. So
he did, yeah. This is a late podcast. We're getting it out here because we had hockey tonight, and we had back-to-back games, and he's unreal. He's ridiculous, actually. Kept us in it. We got shit kicked yesterday and played pretty well today, but lost. But anyways, that's not what we're here. We're not here to talk some hockey. We're here to talk some week 2 waiver wire action. Every year it's the same thing. There's guys that overperform what we were expecting. In week 1, there's guys that get injured. Biggest thing is injuries. We did see some big injuries this week. I'll go through a couple of them here. I did put up a list here. Biggest one we got to kind of talk about. I mean, you could look at Dak Prescott, for example. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. He had to have surgery today. Keenan Allen, heard it's a mild strain, probably out week 2, but back week 3. So, I mean, that's not a huge deal. George Kittle should be back this week. I mean, there's, I guess what I read was there's an outside chance that he does play. Most likely week 3 is the timeline for him. Chris Godwin, 3 weeks, but you know what? They're probably going to ease him in slowly. They probably shouldn't have put him out there week 1. He re-aggravated his injury. Najee Harris. So 2 things. Look, sorry, I had to adjust my mic there. So at first I heard it's going to be quite a while, but then now I've heard that there's a chance he does play in week 2. Did you read anything on that? You're a Steelers fan.
No, I actually haven't seen any updates on Najee. I'm just getting mixed reports like you are.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about his backup very, very shortly here, just to kind of see. He's definitely a must-add no matter what, even if Najee does play, because I mean he battled the foot injury in preseason, and it seems like that's kind of what he re-aggravated again. So T. Higgins, I guess you just got to wait and see on the practice reports. He did leave with a concussion. Elijah Mitchell going to miss multiple weeks. I heard 6 to 8 weeks, I believe, a couple months. So obviously, well, let's just jump right into it right now. That these guys I'm going to be talking about today are going to be guys that are owned in under 60% of Yahoo leagues. So let's just jump right into it and start with Jeff Wilson, 14% owned, which is crazy to me. Elijah Mitchell left in the second quarter, and it looked bad. Immediately he was ruled out. So that just tells you it's pretty serious from the get-go. And now Mitchell's always had, like, last couple of years, I guess he's second year, but last year he battled injuries too. And we saw him miss time, like, with just multiple injuries. So now this is another injury that this could linger on throughout the year. And that's why I think Jeff Wilson, he was the only guy that was touching the ball after Mitchell did leave. Didn't do too much with it. He finished with 30 total yards. But, even if Debo does come in, you're going to see Debo in a lot more of that backfield. You're going to see Trey Lance using his legs a lot more. But I still think as a starting running back for the 49ers, that's still a position of value. And that's why I do think you can probably slot him in as kind of a low-end RB2/flex play in week 2 against the Seahawks, who did just give up some yardage to Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon through the air and on the ground.
Yeah, whenever you can get a starting running back off the waiver wire, it's definitely worth an ad. Debo will be more involved in that backfield, I think, and there will be a little mix of Jordan Mason and probably their rookie, Davis Price. But I think Jeff Wilson, he's been their go-to every time there's been an injury in that backfield. So I don't think there's any reason that should change this year.
Yeah, exactly. Another guy we'll talk about is, we just talked about Najee Harris's backup, Jalen Warren, 4% owned. The thing that concerns me about Harris is he did take that nasty hit in the fourth quarter. He did leave on his own, so there was kind of some positive there. And then you're kind of seeing these reports about how he, there's a good chance he does play week 2. My concern, though, is if it wasn't too serious, why did he not come in an all-important overtime? You know what I mean? An overtime game. I felt that as though, if it wasn't that serious, he could have kind of battled it out, but that's just me. I'm not a doctor. But so to me, Najee is going to probably, if he doesn't take care of this foot issue now, it's something that's going to be something that's going to linger on through the season. So Jalen Warren, he's been getting a lot of hype through preseason. He's been getting a lot of hype just in the offseason in general too. He's the next man up. I mean, they got Benny Snell back there, but no big deal. But with, when Najee did go out late in that fourth quarter, Warren only had managed to, touch the ball had 3 carries, didn't do absolutely nothing with it. And now the Steelers face the Patriots next week. So, I mean, if Harris does in fact miss time, I think you're going to see Warren with at least 15 plus touches. And I think he's going to produce nice fantasy numbers too against the Patriots. I'd go scoop him right now if that's what my plan is. Yeah,
I don't think I'm reading a report right now that says Najee likely to play. Apparently all the tests came back negative. So that's a good sign for Najee, obviously. But Jalen Warren's a stash to me on your bench. It doesn't hurt to stash him because this is a re-aggravated injury, I believe. He injured that same foot earlier on in the season. So I highly doubt, even if he does play next week, that he'll be 100% healthy. So yeah, it's definitely worth a stash.
And there's a chance to re-aggravate it. So yeah, exactly. If you're a Najee, even if you're not a Najee owner, I mean, if you have time, if you have space on your bench, go get him. I mean, that's prime trade bait. If something does happen to Najee down the road, I think that's a perfect opportunity to go, approach that Najee owner and kind of say, hey, listen, I got this guy here, try to make a deal on him. So another running back I want to talk about, Jamal Williams. Got to talk about him. A little bit higher owned, 47% owned. I mean, Swift absolutely looked like the most he's the lead back in the offense. He looked explosive. He looked probably the best I've ever seen him look. 15 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown yesterday. But don't forget about Williams. I mean, didn't do much with his carries. He had 11 carries. Yardage-wise wasn't really there. But biggest thing with him was he's their goal line back. And anytime that a guy has a role on that team, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to flex. I'll flex Jamal Williams every week. If this continues, Detroit can move the ball. They can get in the red zone. And that's exactly when Jamal Williams gets in there. He's their goal line back. He's built for that situation. And that's exactly why he scored 2 touchdowns yesterday.
Yeah, Jamal Williams looked great on Sunday. When I was watching the game, he was a little bit of a touchdown vulture from DeAndre Swift, but that's likely to reoccur. That's going to happen every week, I think, because Swift is getting so many touches with rushes and in the receiving game as well. So he obviously needs a break. They're gonna sub him for Jamal Williams a lot throughout the season, and I think he's gonna be able to get some of those touchdowns on a regular basis.
Jamal Williams has always been like one play away or one injury away from being a lead back. You know what I mean? You look at his days back when he was in Green Bay, right? Who he was stuck behind. A. Jones never really got that opportunity, goes to Detroit, and now he's stuck behind Swift. Jamal Williams is one injury away from being I would say top 20 running back if an injury was to occur. So I've always liked Jamal Williams. I would be prioritizing him, and not just, as I said, not just for a stash play, but more of a flex worthy option every week. Yeah. Any other running backs you want to touch on real quick? I'll just throw this one out there. Rex Burkhead for the Texans backfield. I mean, when you talk about touches, I mean, everyone we were high on. I'm a Texas fan. We were high on Dameon Pierce. Didn't do too much. They trust Burkhead though. I mean, he had 13 rushes. He had 7 targets in this game. So he is he's relied on in this offense. I think you're kind of going to see Dameon Pierce still. I still think it's Dameon Pierce's gig, but I just think in these games that they're going to give, it's going to be more of a 50-50 split until Dameon Pierce can actually break away from that if he does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know the exact ownage percentage of James Robinson, but if he's for whatever reason on your waiver wire, pick him up because I've been saying I think he's going to be the lead back, and it looks like he's going to be that 1A in Jacksonville this year.
Yeah, and another guy just to touch on super quick here. It's not really a household name, but Dontrell Hilliard for the Titans. He's their number 2 RB2 behind Henry. So I mean, if something was to happen to Henry, he's going to be the next man up. And I mean, he's already got an established role. Clearly, I mean, if you watched the game the other day, you saw 88% of the third down snaps, which is crazy. And you know, he was one of the most efficient rushers in last season. So, I mean, even if it's the same situation with Harris, you know, if you have a spot on your bench, I would go stash him in case something. I mean, we've seen Henry get banged up last year, and that's when we saw kind of Foreman step in. Foreman's no longer there. Hilliard's the guy. So just a guy to keep an eye on moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And Henry looked absolutely brutal in the pass game.
Yeah,
on Sunday. So Dontrell Hilliard can definitely come in and take those passes away from him.
That's where he got his touchdowns. Right, was through the air.
Yeah.
Head over to the wide receiver position. Top guy I want to talk about is Jahan Dotson of the Commanders, 23% owned. He looked great in his debut. I mean, he caught 3 of his 5 targets for 40 yards, scored twice against the Jaguars team who, like, obviously they just continue to struggle against the pass catchers every single year. Now, I don't know how often the Commanders are going to throw the ball, but they threw it 40 times that game. But they spread it around. I mean, Wentz did a great job spreading that ball around between Dotson. You got McLaurin. You got the tight ends there. You get Gibson. Gibson was lightning yesterday. He looked great, or on Sunday. Now, moving forward, I think this is something is if Dotson can see 5+ targets a game, which I think is very, very reasonable, and I think is very profitable for Commanders to install plays for him like that. I think he could be he's going to produce every single week. I mean, he's that gadget kind of player. He can run, he can come out of the backfield. He's exactly what they drafted him for. And I just figure, I mean, like I said, if he can consistently see 5+ targets a game and just on his skill set alone, he's got value.
Yeah, this one, I'm not really sure how I feel about Jahan Dotson just yet. He looked incredible. All you could ask for out of a rookie receiver. It's just, I think that game was a bit of an anomaly for Wentz to throw the ball that much. And I think I actually like the other guy on Washington a bit better, Curtis Samuel. 11 targets on Sunday. You can't ignore that. He was drawing more targets than Terry McLaurin, which I don't think will continue, but I think he's that more gadget role in Washington. So I'm prioritizing Curtis Samuel, but I definitely think Dotson can be that he can get those red zone targets. Absolutely. I just think he's more boom or bust player, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I mean, if you look at Curtis Samuel, I mean, number one, he's finally healthy. I mean, every year that we've seen him play, he's always been kind of banged up. But you got, I mean, he played 71% of the snaps in week 1. And like you said, had 11 targets. But what was weird was he played less snaps than both McLaurin and Dotson did. So that's why I kind of prioritize kind of Dotson a little bit over him. I mean, I'm definitely all over Samuel, and I agree with you 100%. You're going to go to a guy that's going to be targeted heavily. But I mean, you could tell that Washington, it was a priority for Washington to get him on the field. So I mean, either one of those guys, Curtis Samuel, Dotson, you can't go wrong with either of them. Like you said, when it comes to targets, you can't ignore the distribution that he did have on Sunday.
Yeah.
Another guy to talk about, Jarvis Landry, which shocked me that he's only 42% owned, but I mean, he stepped in and made a huge impact for the Saints offense. Winston really likes him. I mean, he led all receivers in targets with 9 yardage. He had over 114 or had 114 and 7 receptions. So, I mean, he should be able to produce at this level kind of every week as that Saints number 2 receiver behind, Michael Thomas. And now the Saints have the Bucks in week 2, and Landry, I think, is flex worthy, and especially in PPR leagues when it comes to next week against the Bucks.
Yeah, me personally, I was ecstatic when I drafted Jarvis Landry in the last round of my fantasy football draft. But
yeah, it's crazy how he's fallen.
He's always been that safety net, and now like I'm looking at Jarvis Landry, like I almost want to start him over my 6th, 7th, 8th round picks now because I feel so secure when he's always been a PPR monster though when he's healthy on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if anything, like the sky's the limit in New Orleans now with Jameis Winston throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's even safer now in New Orleans than he was when he was playing for Cleveland.
Well, especially because now especially if you got a healthy Michael Thomas out there, you got Chris Olave, you got Landry. There's no more. You can't really double team any of those guys, right? Because there's so many weapons for Winston around now. So Landry's going to figure out a way to get open. I mean, he could get open when he was double teamed as well. So that's just that. As long as everybody's healthy and he's not their number 1 per se, I think Landry is going to be make a big splash this year.
Yep.
Go to another receiver, Devin Duvernay of the Ravens. Now, not sure how I feel about this one, to be honest with you, because really each week, I mean, you played fantasy long enough. It's hard to trust any Ravens receiver on a week-to-week basis. But the fact that he did outproduce, everyone thought Rashad Bateman was the guy. He outperformed him. Duvernay caught all 4 of his targets over 50 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Jets. I mean, it was against the Jets. But when it comes to this pickup, I'm stashing him. I'm not recommending you play him next week, especially against the Dolphins. But I think in the case that Duvernay turns out to be Lamar's go-to guy, that's why I'm pretty much grabbing him. That's why I'm stashing him. And I just want to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Duvernay would be like in the top of my waiver wire ads for this week at least. Just because I feel like that game wasn't like even Mark Andrews didn't do very much in that game. And I don't think that's going to continue. I'm still a diehard Rashad Bateman believer. So
he still played well. He played well yesterday.
Yeah, I think those targets will naturally draw out to Bateman and Andrews as the season goes on, but it's definitely not worth like if you do have the budget to spend on Devin Duvernay, absolutely go grab him, stash him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, and you're not going to blow a ton of money on him. Like a lot of these guys, I mean, if next week I'll plan it out a little bit better. I'll prioritize my guys, from my first guy all the way down to the bottom. But I mean, a guy like Jeff Wilson, you're going to pay for. You're going to, you're not going to blow your fab on him, but you're going to put a hefty bit of your money down on him. You're going to blow you if it's just priority wise. You're going to blow your waiver on him. He's pretty much would he be the only guy that you're really willing to pay for out of all this group of guys that we talked about?
Honestly, Jarvis is probably up there for me.
Yep.
Jarvis Landry and another guy, I don't know if you were going to talk about him, but Robbie Anderson actually would be up there for me. But the other guys kind of just like, if you do have a bench spot and you kind of have a guy who did nothing last week, if you have the room for them, absolutely go grab them. But I wouldn't be rushing to spend your fab on them at all.
I did kind of laugh at the fact that Robbie Anderson was completely against having Baker on that team, and look what happened yesterday.
Well, I don't blame him. Baker did not look very good.
You're right. Just a couple other guys just want to touch on real quick. Rookie Kyle Phillips from the Titans, 6 catches on 9 targets for 66 yards. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, it wasn't Traylon Burks you were hearing about during camp. It was Phillips the whole time. He knows how to get open. He was getting open all over the field yesterday. And I mean, for a rookie like that to understand and be able to do those kind of things, now you're going to gain a lot of respect from your quarterback. So, I mean, Kyle Phillips is a guy to keep an eye on. And also Zay Jones continues to actually make an appearance in fantasy land. He's clearly the number 2 option in Jacksonville behind Christian Kirk. And just, with the fact that Jacksonville is going to be trailing pretty much every game, let's be realistic. I mean, Jones is going to get the targets. I mean, between him and Kirk, you're going to see a ton of targets to each of these guys. So I would honestly maybe even try to get him as a bench spot, or just kind of, if there's a guy that, like you said, didn't perform on your bench, get rid of him and put a guy in there that's going to perform on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, exactly. Zay Jones actually looked very good.
Yeah,
very good when I was watching him. And yeah, going back to Kyle Phillips, I definitely add him. I just think that Treylon Burks actually performed very well, above my expectations on Sunday too. I think he's just kind of getting his feet wet in that offense. I think Treylon Burks is going to probably emerge in the next couple of weeks as that number 1 guy for them. But Kyle Phillips out of the slot getting those targets, those are very valuable in that offense as well.
Yeah, exactly. And last position we'll talk about is the tight end position. Can't believe I'm bringing this guy up, but I'm going to do it anyways. Is OJ Howard 1% owned? There's a good reason for that, but I mean, you're not starting him. You're pretty much not blowing anything on him. If he's just sitting there, go and get him. And keep an eye out. You're not starting him, but keep an eye out for his production moving forward. As soon as he went on waivers, the Texans scooped him right up. They do have another guy with the same kind of, body type and everything like that, Brevin Jordan. But, as soon as Lovie Smith got Howard, he already knew what he was going to do with him, right? And it was pretty much exact same situation what we saw on the weekend. I mean, he had 2 catches for 38 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's just a big-bodied receiver that, is a perfect prime target for a guy like Davis Mills in the red zone.
Yeah, OJ Howard had a vintage Tampa Bay stat line with the 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. If you're in a super deep league, maybe he's worth an ad. Just for me, I never like to chase touchdowns, and I don't think that's viable. I don't think that's good. You're going to depend on that too much. Maybe in a shootout game, you could put a flyer out on him and start him, but I honestly wouldn't be rushing to the waiver wire to grab him. There's a couple other tight ends I'd probably go for instead.
I'm just a little, the thing with me though is I'm looking at it too. They're desperate to find a second target hog behind Cooks in that offense, right? So I'm wondering if, the fact that what he did on Sunday, if that's going to come into play next week and you're going to see him playing a lot more snaps out there, being on the field a lot more. So that's what I'm saying. Kind of keep an eye on the situation. Don't blow anything on him. Don't, prioritize him, but just saying, keep an eye on what happens next week and if he continues to see more snaps and he's more involved, then that might be a chance if he's still out there, then that might be another option to go and get him. But I know a guy that you're talking about that you really, really like is Gerald Everett of the Chargers. Keenan Allen's out right now for a few weeks. I mean, we got a veteran tight end in Everett, and he had 3 catches on 4 targets for over 50 yards at a touchdown. So Herbert can spread that ball around, and he did. He threw it to guys on Sunday that I didn't even know even existed.
DeAndre Carter, who are you?
Yeah, DeAndre Carter. I mean, where did Mike Williams go? Did he just take a seat? Like, I didn't even hear his name at all. But anyways, the fact that Everett is he's only rostered, I think, in 27% of leagues. I think he's got at least tight end 2 value moving forward, especially against the Chiefs in week 2.
Yeah, Gerald Everett, he's a guy I completely forgot was on the Chargers before the season even started, to be honest. And Everett's looked good pretty much every team he's been on. He's shown those flashes. He just never really got the opportunity. I think he has the opportunity now with Keenan Allen possibly out. And when you have a top 5 quarterback in the league slinging the ball as much as Justin Herbert does, I think absolutely he's worth a flyer on the waiver.
Yeah, and another guy we'll just touch on real quick is Hayden Hurst of the Bengals. 5 catches, 46 yards, and on 8 targets. That was clearly because, we saw T. Higgins leave this game with a concussion. But if T. Higgins does miss week 2, I think you're going to see Higgins kind of see that similar target share next week.
Yeah. Hayden Hurst, he did look good in that game. Another guy I just want to touch on real quick, Robert Tonyan. I don't know what his ownage percentage is, but I don't think it's very high. Robert Tonyan, that Green Bay game, they looked atrocious on offense. I know Aaron Rodgers is getting pissed off, and when he doesn't trust his receivers, he will not throw to them. But a guy he is familiar with is Robert Tonyan. So he had 5 targets on Sunday. I think that's going to go up in these next couple of weeks. I think Robert Tonyan's going to have some big games, so I think he's definitely worth an ad.
Yeah, actually, I was going to touch on him at some point too. 23% owned in Yahoo leagues. That's a guy that I'm targeting just because, you're listening to Watson dropped a guaranteed touchdown. I think that's what got Rodgers pissed. I thought he'd probably retire at halftime just because, but at the same time, you know what? Problem with Rodgers is he's an asshole. Let's be realistic. I think he's an asshole. That
drives me crazy.
And you know what? These rookies, it's going to take time. Like, let them, you're no longer that elite quarterback that you used to be. So give these kids give these guys a shot to actually, earn your respect. Don't just shit on them all like for no reason. But I don't know. I still think Watson. I think is it Romeo Dubes or Dubs or whatever. I think they're Dubs. They're both going to be good, moving forward. But I do agree with you. I think Robert Tonyan is going to probably see, 8 to 10 targets a game now, I would think.
Yeah, and I know Alan Lazard should be coming back, so he will probably be that wide receiver 1, but I'm still not afraid to grab Robert Tonyan because we saw even with limited targets, he was still scoring touchdowns like a madman, right? So I think he's going to be that second target for Aaron Rodgers when Lazard does come back, and yeah, I think that's very valuable in that offense.
Well, and especially the fact, like if you got tight ends like I do in a league of Austin Hooper and David Njoku, I'd rather take a flyer on Tonyan if he's there, because I mean, when you drop down to those tight end situations, it's deep down there. It's kind of a flyer at any position. But if you're going to see a guy that, like I said, is going to get, targeted 5 to 8 times a game, especially by a guy like Rodgers on an offense that does move the ball and pass a lot, I think that's an ideal situation when it comes to the waiver wire. But all right, anyone else you want to touch on real quick?
No, I think that's about it.
All right, guys. Well, that takes care of our week 2 waiver wire show, and we will be back later on this week to preview week 2 games, go through some starts and sits, and then probably come back on the following on Sunday game day, maybe for another Q&A situation, Riley, if you're able to join me.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Okay, guys. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk soon. Peace.